Okay, good evening and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube Table Enabled, the final Table Enabled of this week. Another successful week, thank God. We're doing Simon Kuf Pei Hey 185. Hilchos Birkos Hamazon, one of the more famous songs that you remember from your childhood. We'll talk about today, especially during this year and especially during a very special Ian to lean on, where you hear my personal opinion about the famous Belzer Niggin. If you don't know what a Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam Hazan. So I'm going to probably perform that for my Instagrammy's section where I rise to musical fame. A new section, one of my new sections on my channel. Um, Bechein bechesed urachamim. Who knows lechem lechol masar ki li'olam chasdov. All right, let's get into it. Aleph, Birkas Hamazon, Nemru b'cholashon. You can say it in any language. If you don't understand Hebrew, you can say it in English. Did you know that halacha? It's Gemara in Sota, Mefurish. A lot of things you can say in any language, including tefillah, Kriyash Manat. Beis Sarach Sheyashmiel La'aznav Mashamoti B'Svasav. L'chadchila, you're supposed to hear yourself. V'im lo hishmiel la'aznav yatsa. B'di'evet, if you didn't hear it, you're yotze. Ubilvad sheyotzi b'svasav, as long as you enunciate the words with your lips and tongue. But if you don't do that, you just mumble jumble through it, then you're not yotze. Gimel, Yishmisha Omer, the Baal Bayis, Bonov Ishto. Sarach levarach b'kol ram k'di sheyetzu b'rechaso. This is from the Kolbo, not from mainstream Rishon. It's not definitely not in the Gemara. The Malabai is with his family, with his wife and his kids. He should say it out loud, and his kids should listen. His wife should listen. In the Mishnah Berurah, he says, really, you're not supposed to be yotze with someone else's bracha if you know the bracha yourself. Because we're talking about where the husband, the wife, and the children are not bikiyim. Nowadays, you have the benching written down. Most women and children are familiar. They learn in school how to read Hebrew. So, and even if you don't know Hebrew, you could really say it in English. Of course, it can be hard to find it translated in English. I guess in our school, Sidurim that translate to English, you can find it in English. So technically, if they know English or Hebrew, they can say it themselves. You're not supposed to be yotze with someone else's bracha if you know how to be yotze, if you know how to say it yourself. So that's what the basis of the kol was, that generally in ancient times, women and children weren't proficient in Hebrew. The Mishnah Berurah brings, Ve'isha kasvus the tov la'olam levarach b'kol ram. It's a good thing to always bench out loud, because when you bench out loud, you have more kavana. A problem who Shabbos Rosh Chodesh lo yishkach l'dizeh lahasker ben amor. Also, won't forget to say Rosh Chodesh, Yalav Yavo, say Ritzei or Yalav Yavo in benching. Now, a lot of people interpret this Mishnah Berurah, I think, to be the source for the famous nigun by, I think his name is Breyer, Pinchas Breyer. It was a Belzer Chassid. It was asked by one of the Belzer Rabbanim, the Admorim, to compose a tune for Birkas Hamazon to help children get into it. And the tune you know so well for Birkas Hamazon is really a Belzer Nigun. Some people say that's what Mishra was talking about here. You say, Kol Ram, you should sing. I don't think so. I think it's a bad idea, this whole singing. And I'll tell you why, in Ian Talina, many reasons why I think it's not a good idea. But I'll tell you the truth, in my parents' house, my father does sing for the first bracha. When we do a zimun, he sings it out loud. And my grandfather alive, my father's father was alive. He used to come to our house for Shabbos, and he would do the whole thing out loud, because my grandfather really couldn't read inside. His eyesight was worsened a lot when he was older, so he had to help him along. He had a big scripted sitter in front of him, but he really couldn't see so well, so he had to say it out loud for him. But I don't like this singing business. I think it's for kids. I associate it with my childhood, where you went to camp and things like that. They did it out loud. I don't think it's a good minhag to do. I'll tell you why. You need to lean on Dalit. I feel even if you're so drunk that you can't even speak normally, you can say Birkat Hamazon, because a shikr, right, included in the pasuk of Achalta v'Savata, when you're hasvia, you probably drank a little bit also, maybe some beer or some wine. So included, the Torah understood that you'll probably be a little shikr when you're saying Birkas Hamazon. Hey, in Birach Haisa Soa Kenegdo, Oshai shikr Perish Lagamre. If he's completely a shikr, meaning Eno rola davar l'fnei hamelech, meaning when you meet Joe Biden, right? You can't speak coherently because he can't speak coherently. So you can't speak coherently. He can't speak coherently because he's Joe Biden and he's an advanced age, and you can't speak coherently because you drank one too many bottles of tequila. So, so both of you have a problem. So if he's considered a melech, I don't know Joe Biden, maybe the president of the United States, under normal circumstances, would be considered a melech, but it's hard for me to categorize Joe Biden as a king, a man who has dementia and can't speak coherently. Could you really call him a king? Um, the staff got toasted at Russian Sarach Lachsar Lavarich. The Russian and toasted have a suffix, right? He finds Soa, right? Connected within your Dalit Amos, the post going to say, right? When for tefillah you have to go back. What about Birkat Hamazon? Or your shikr lagamri? You can't daven as a shikr lagamri. You have to repeat davening if you did. However, you found within your Dalit Amos urine. Urine is not as significant as excrement. So urine you don't go back. Excrement and shikr, the poskim talk about it, the Mishnah Berurah talks about it. He says that excrement, the consensus of the poskim, you do go back and repeat Birkas Hamazon. It seems to be from the Mishnah Berurah and from the Bar Halacha that if you're a shikr, you don't go back, even if you can't talk in front of a king, um, a real king. You have to go to King Charles. Let's say you can't talk in front of King Charles, so then you wouldn't have to go back because I guess it's included in a chalta v'savata, even any type of shikr, right? You had a lot of wine to drink during your meal. So that's a consensus of halacha. That's the conclusion of today's share. Stay tuned for Ian Talina, where I talk about this idea of this famous tune for Birkas Hamazon, everyone's favorite, childhood favorite. I'll tell you why I think it's a bad idea, even with you and your wife and your kids, unless they don't know the benching. Maybe then it's a good thing. But I don't know. I don't think singing would be a great idea. I'll tell you why. Ian Talina coming up next.